Over the past 3 decades, China has made sustained progress in raising the standard of living of its rural population. Using China's previous definition, the number of people living below the poverty line in rural areas declined from 250 million in 1978 to 27 million in 2010. Last week, the government redefined the poverty line from a net yearly income of 1,196 RMB to 2,300 RMB, and in doing so added 100 million rural residents deemed poor and able to claim poverty subsidies. According to the 2010 China census, 51% of the population live in rural areas. This figure has been slowly falling, down from 64% in 2000 and over 95% in the 1920s. It's estimated that by 2015 there will be more people living in Chinese cities than there are in the countryside. There are around 1 million villages in China, housing around 800 million rural peasants and migrant workers, roughly 500 million farmers and 300 million to 400 million excess unskilled rural labourers. Each village has an average of 916 people, with an annual per capita disposable income of 2,762 RMB, according to the 2006 figures, compared to 8,799 RMB for city dwellers. Over the past 3 decades, the Chinese government has had a number of poverty reduction drives for rural residents. Broadly speaking, these can be divided into 5 stages. The first stage started in 1978, when collective farming gave way to the household contract responsibility system. This wide-ranging reform relaxed control over agricultural prices and established village enterprises, increasing the net income per farmer almost fourfold over the following 8 years. The second stage came in the mid-1980s, which sought to address an unevenness in the previous stage gains. The government adopted a series of important development-orientated poverty reduction measures, such as setting up special Help the Poor work units, allocating special funds and formulating favourable policies in districts that had not benefited from the previous policies. During this stage, the number of rural poor dropped from 125 million to 80 million. The third stage, which began in 1994, was marked by a 7-year priority poverty alleviation programme, where the government focused on tackling the key underlying problems of poverty. In November 2000, China announced that it had eliminated absolute poverty. Over the past 10 years, under a policy named Poverty Reduction and Development of China's Rural Areas, the government reduced taxes, including the abolition of the agricultural tax, which had burdened Chinese farmers for 2,600 years, and increased subsidies. The outlays of the central finance on agriculture, the countryside and farmers increased from 214 billion RMB in 2003 to 858 billion RMB by 2010. This year, the government has announced the 5th stage, titled New Progress in Development-Orientated Poverty Reduction Programme for Rural China, that will run until 2020. The policy aims to further reduce poverty by strengthening agricultural technology, infrastructure and enterprise in rural areas. Over the next 10 weeks, using local teachers as a guide, I'll be travelling across rural China to meet local villagers and get a first-hand impression of the ways in which the Chinese countryside has changed over the past 30 years. I also seek to discover the key challenges rural residents face for the coming years and see how the communities plan to address those needs.